Team USA finally got their first win. So they lost against Nigeria, then they lost against Australia, but they won against Argentina. What do you think about this start to the Olympic tournament? I know it's just exhibition games, but what do you think about the start of this journey for Team USA?
It's obviously not ideal. I mean, it's not panic, but there's some red flags up there, right? Like, and they haven't, at least in the first two games against Argentina, it started to look different. They didn't look like the Americans we know, right? Who overwhelm you on defense and use that athleticism to get out and run. And it's the one thing, as the skill level in the rest of the world has gone up, and make no mistake, like the skill level in the margin for error is small. The skill level is much higher in the rest of the world. This is not 1992 Angola anymore, right? Like, you're going to have to beat these guys. But we haven't seen that kind of athleticism in defense. We did against Argentina, and I'm curious when they play the final couple of I call them exhibition games. Do we see more of that? And the other thing is, I think they're still. You could see the players were still, like Chris Haynes talked about this. Like, they're adjusting to FIBA, right? They're going in expecting NBA calls, and international basketball is more physical. You're allowed to be much more physical with shooters and guys on the drive, and they're expecting these calls and kind of looking around like, well, where's my free throws? They've just got to learn to power through it. And I think you saw a little bit of that against Argentina. And I think guys were just the Bradley Beals and Jason Tatums and guys who attack the rim are getting a sense of that now.
Yeah, the game's evolved. And I mean, who won the world championships in 2019? Spain.
Yeah.
So you think about the game in recent years. We've talked about this in past episodes. Who were the MVPs recently? Who are the franchise players in the NBA? I mean, Giannis, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic. Like, this is an international game, and I think what Coach Pop said, Coach Popovich said in an interview recently, where to assume that the Team USA just blows out every team isn't giving other teams the respect they deserve. Like I said, Spain won the World Championships in 2019. So I think when we look at the play around the world, obviously we have to realize that there are a lot of great players out there and a lot of great teams. I think that when you talk about the past year and a half, just zooming out here, past year and a half with the bubble and then COVID making this season shorter, but it's actually, shorter games, but it's longer timeline, right? They finish in July. I think players are still trying to figure out their rhythms bodily, because what happens is we have, a lot of athletes just have different times when you peak, and you understand your body, like your internal clock is different. So being able to be at your highest level in August or July, isn't necessarily what you're training year round for decades. You're training to peak in June when the NBA finals are. So I think that's also something to realize, that everyone's trying to get back in shape and get back to a point where they can peak at the right time here in late July, early August.
Yeah, exactly. I actually think that's a really good point, that there was a lack of sync. There was a lack of consistency. They faded in the second half against Australia, right? Like, the ball moved and they led, I think, slightly at the half. It was a good first half for them. They looked a lot better. And when they got a little bit tired, everybody knows, you get a little bit tired and suddenly the passes are a little less sloppy. Your rotation's a step slow. And the other part of this is Nigeria had 7 NBA players. Australia has 5 or 6, and good ones. Patty Mills is like Giannis Antetokounmpo when it gets to international ball. He's just unstoppable out there. He's so good. I think that the U.S. will adapt and adjust. Look, they're still the gold medal favorites, right? The heavy gold medal favorites. I think that it's just been a bit of a steep learning curve. They've been practicing they've been together for 6 days before that first game against Nigeria. The cohesion isn't there yet.
And we know when you have all this talent, like obviously Team USA has unbelievable amounts of talent. We've highlighted that, headlined by Kevin Durant, who is playing at an unbelievable level right now. But when you look at the All-Star games, I think we've also seen in the past the quality of play at the All-Star games, where it's like you have all these people together for one day, and it's not a lot of defense. It doesn't really make sense as far as basketball is concerned. Obviously this isn't an All-Star game, but I think the way that we think about, how much time does a team need to really gel and play together, I think that's also a very important point to bring up, Kurt, and you realize it. But at the end of the day, you're right. The expectations are, you got to win gold, and that is what they have to play like. And if not, then if this is the quality of play that they're going to bring into the tournament come Olympics, in a week or two, we're going to see, I think, it's going to be for a rude awakening.
Yeah, that first game is against France, which is a stacked team that could absolutely medal. Rudy Gobert in the paint and plenty of other talent all around the roster. They start off with a tough one.
Moving on to the NBA draft, everyone's favorite topic. So what are your personal favorites, picks coming up? In your opinion, who do you think are the steals?
I mean, at the top of the draft, Cade Cunningham is going to go one. I think whichever team gets Jalen Green, like their fan base is going to love him. That guy's just going to go get buckets. He's athletic. He's up and down. Like I think that there's some, Mobley's interesting. I think that this is a good draft. There's a lot when you start getting back out of that first few and into the teens and the later half of the draft, later half of the lottery and beyond. A lot of really interesting like 3-and-D guys or guys with really impressive athleticism and potential. Like, oh, we just need to clean up his shot, or can't they have they have holes, they have question marks. But if this is the modern NBA, you've got to be able to draft those guys, pick them, draft them, and then develop them a little bit, right? You can't just, guys are not coming in as finished products, and you need to be Utah where you can like, hey, I can take Donovan Mitchell, I can take Rudy Gobert and turn them into superstars because of their potential. You've got to have, Toronto's been really good at that. I think you have to have that level of development to really succeed. And I think there's a lot of guys. This is another draft where there's going to be a couple guys taken in the teens, and in 3 years, you and I are going to be sitting here doing this going, how did they miss that? Yeah, it's going to have a few of those.
It always does. This is why the draft's so interesting to me, just philosophically, because you have to have vision and you have to see something. How do you help take that person to the next level? But at the same time, too, you have to be able to, because it's not all just physical talents and say, okay, this guy's athletic, this guy has the skill set, we can turn him into that. I think a lot of times the talent the guys bring to the table, should be the primary thing. But if you only have 1 or 2 years of tape on somebody, it's very hard to make those decisions. So I always love seeing how it shakes out, and like those surprises in 3 or 4 years, I'm always like, yeah, wow, it's amazing to see. I love I love watching people have success. But the two people who really stand out to me are Jonathan Kuminga and Jalen Green. I mean, watching them play the G League last year, I was thinking to myself, who are these guys? They were so much fun to watch, and they were dominant. So I really think whoever picks up those guys are going to have really nice picks.
I think there's an advantage for those guys too, in that this wasn't playing against college teams where, there's maybe a couple NBA players at best on the roster, and you get a couple of games against guys who you can really dominate. These were men trying to earn paychecks and get up, like having to do that, and how much Green in particular was able to score against that is a real impressive thing. Teams feel they know those two better, by the way, because like you said, I mean, limited scouting, limited games. You don't have as much tape on guys as you did previously. They all went to the G League showcase. They sat there front row and watched Green and Kuminga and know exactly what they can do. They've got reports from Brian Shaw, who coached that team and everything. Like, they feel they know those guys more. It's a huge advantage for them, I think, in some ways, having already same with some of the guys who come out of the international that have played high level internationally. You've played against better competition.
Yeah, and how many G League coaches become NBA coaches?
Oh yeah, a lot.
Yeah. So I think
it's not just a training ground for players. Like, the refs come through there, the coaches come through there. Can I throw out one name too? If you're going to get down late in the first, Jerome Robinson Earl, 6'10" forward out of Villanova, is the kind of guy I think teams need more of late in the draft, late in the first round, where, okay, at this point, maybe there's a flyer, but pretty much now you're at the point you're looking for a guy who can be a solid rotation player. I love the guys who come out of Villanova, Michigan State. There's a handful of schools where those guys come out well coached. I mean, how many Villanova guys just come into the Jalen Brunsons of the world, just come in the league and can play? Yep. I can flat out come in and play tomorrow and make a difference. Those are the kind of guys who get drafted in the 20s and instantly impact. I mean, as rookies, can have an impact and get minutes.
Absolutely. And we have to go look at, 1-2 here. There might be a potential trade. Is that the case? You have Detroit Pistons with number 1 overall pick. Number 2 is Houston Rockets. What are you hearing?
Houston in particular, there's a few teams that would really like. There's teams that are really high on Cade Cunningham. I mean, he's I don't want to say unquestionably, almost unquestionably going to go number 1, right? And so Detroit probably takes him. He makes a lot of sense there, frankly. Like, if you've got a 6'8" ball handling forward, and now you've got Sadiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart, all these other guys they've got, like, it's a nice fit, but can you blow them away? Can you make a Jared Goff type of offer to come? You know what I mean? Come in so over the top. I don't know if Houston has the assets to do that, but the number 2 pick and some other stuff, they're just really high on him. And I think, look, if you think Cade Cunningham or somebody else, but if you think Cade Cunningham can be a franchise cornerstone, all NBA superstar kind of player that you can build a champion around, I mean, how many of those guys are in the league? There's a handful of them. Go get it. Like whatever you have to do to go get him. If you believe he's going to be that guy, you got to take your swing.
There's not a lot of franchise players.
There's not, man. It's just a huge.
But overall, it looks like a very full, as far as drafts are concerned, it looks like there's a lot of talent to be had there, and especially in that first round.
Yeah.
Next, we're talking about the NBA hires. It seems like every week, multiple positions are being filled. This one, it's Jamal Mosley replaces Steve Clifford as the head coach of the Orlando Magic. I want to get your take on that. And the second one is Suns assistant Willie Green, potential hire for the New Orleans Pelicans. But let's start with the Orlando Magic. Do you like this hire?
Yeah, I do. I mean, Mosley's a guy who, you know what Mosley and Green have in common, and I think Chauncey Billups falls into this group. It's a relationship thing. This isn't, I'm not coming in as a coach and X's and O dictator, and you're going to play, I'm going to move the pieces around. And not that there's not a role for an X's and O's coach. That Rick Carlisle guy is pretty good at it, right? But at the end of the day, an NBA coach is a relationship business. It's a ability to connect with the players. And I think that is what you see with Green. That's his reputation. Mosley's had a great reputation everywhere he's been. Luka loved him. I think that these are good picks especially for Mosley, and look, they're not going to be good in Orlando for a few years. Like they've got some roster stocking to do. But if you can build relationships, get these guys to work, get everybody pulling the rope in the same direction, in a couple of years, you start to build a culture that leads to this. And I think you never know, but I like these kind of hires.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, because Orlando, we've talked about before, they're in a kind of a transitionary period, to say the least. They got rid of Aaron Gordon and Vucevic and Nikola Vucevic, and now they're trying to build around Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac. So it's the perfect time to kind of bring in that relationship builder piece you're talking about, build that new relationship with guys who you think are going to be the cornerstones of the franchise.
Yeah, exactly. I love Jonathan Isaac. I was so bummed he was out next year. I'm looking forward to it. That guy he could come back and be an all defensive player this year. And if his offensive game starts to develop, I just think I think these are good hires. You get diversity, but what you really just have to get is, I think the diversity comes with guys players relate to, guys players connect with. How many guys are playing in Tokyo because they wanted to be there with Greg Popovich, right? Like if you have that connection with players, guys will flock to you, and guys will. I had Coach K talk about this at a USA thing years ago. It's not the same. He's like, I can't. This isn't Bobby Knight. I can't just say jump and you say how high anymore. You have to explain why you're doing stuff, and you have to treat the players differently and build a different relationship. But he was really clear. Like today's players will still run through a wall for you if they believe in you. Like that part hasn't changed. Athletes and competitors are athletes and competitors. You just have to approach it differently now than you did in 1954. Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned diversity. So, there's a lot of black coaches getting these head coaching positions. I know last time we had this coaching cycle, there was frustration voiced that there were a lot of good black candidates who weren't getting those positions. Now we're starting to see that position. As far as diversity going forward in the head coaching role in the NBA, are you encouraged by this? What are your emotions?
Yeah, I am encouraged by this. I think the diversity and the giving, these are guys who have paid the dues, right? This isn't, look, Steve Nash did a good job. I don't want to take like a shot away from Steve Nash, but Steve Nash was not working his way up through the system on the bench for years. He kind of got gifted an opportunity and admitted from the start, like, I'm not sure I've earned this, but I'm going to do my best. These are guys who paid the dues, did the work, and deserve the opportunity. And you never know if a guy's a good head coach until he's until you see him as a head coach. But I think that the relationships that they've built, it bodes well. And I think you're seeing, like I said, the diversity comes with finding guys who players connect to. And I think they've done an amazing job.
So one person who hasn't showed any signs of slowing down, Kurt, is LeBron James. At one point he was leading the league in assists. Where do you think his clock is as far as retirement? Do you think he's even thinking about that, or what do you think he's going through his mind as far as playing longer?
I think he wants to play as long as he can. I mean, he came out this week and was like, in a podcast, not, promoting Space Jam, not a basketball podcast, but somebody asked about it. And he said, look, I want to retire with the Lakers. And whether that's in 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. First off, LeBron probably shouldn't count like that. It didn't go well last time in Miami, but he was talking multiple years down the line. It's long been thought he wanted to play when Bronny gets into the league, his son, in a few years. I think he's got a few years left. He's just so hard to judge. There's a bell curve of how you expect players to kind of, and then he reached this age and they've had this many games and this many miles on the legs. And you start to see, you can predict when the decline comes. And he is one of those guys like Kareem and Karl Malone who it just doesn't seem to affect them the same way. He's had a couple of injuries in the last few years, but they're a bit fluky. And he takes such good care of himself. He's got such not only physical skills, but like such a high IQ player that his game doesn't age well. I think he could play for multiple more years, and the Lakers will gladly have him.
Yeah, I think everyone in the world will want LeBron on their team. Yeah, I think from my perspective, I don't think media should determine when somebody retires.
Yeah.
I think it's their choice, and if they want to keep playing, and they're obviously LeBron is doing a fantastic job. So I think that kind of speaks for itself. But what I do think is interesting as far as a playing is concerned in this game is you're starting to see the way that players adjust their game to keep playing at a high level, right? LeBron isn't doing what LeBron did when he was in his 20s.
No.
But he's finding new ways to be effective, and he's surrounding himself with pieces that can fill in those production gaps, right? Like Anthony Davis is doing all of running the offense through Anthony Davis. He's taking the beating down low, right? And LeBron is becoming a facilitator, and not just any facilitator, one of the best facilitators in the game. And that's exactly, if you want to play into your 40, if you want to play into your mid 40s, whatever it might be, you have to adapt. And LeBron has done an unbelievable job adapting to the game and finding new ways, like shooting threes. He used to not be able to do that. So finding a ways to not just adapt, but excel in those adaptations. And that's what makes great players great.
Yeah, and I think the advantage of modern technology and understanding of like how to take care of your body, right? The workouts, what to eat, how to refuel, how to get rest and recovery. Having all that kind of scientific knowledge that's built up in the last few years allows a Chris Paul to look like this in the finals at age 36, right? Or LeBron to play this well. I think if you are dedicated to it, you have the ability now to do, this isn't Vlade Divac smoking on the side, smoking under the basket during practice anymore. Like, guys take much better care of their bodies. And because of that, I think they're physically able to play longer, because the mental part, does the mental part go away?
I don't think so, right? I mean, it's just like if you're a 40-year-old or you're a 20-year-old, you're a professional, right? I think that's kind of the way that a lot of these guys see it. Is I'm a professional. This is what I've dedicated. It's my craft,
Yeah.
right?